pressure looks good.
Doubling up. Roger, roll with planet.
Water towers can fly!
Tango Delta nominal.
Pilot downside, SCE to off. Say again, SCE to off. Off.
Yikes. You bet.
Concur.
We don't need any more of these.
All right, folks, it's a busy morning, and SpaceX is really keeping us here at NASASpaceflight busy. Let me know if you can hear me in chat. Thomas Burkhardt, if you tuned into the Starlink stream like 5 minutes ago, may have already heard my voice a little bit, but I hopped over here because we got to split the team up for dual coverage. We got dual streams going on right now. Technically 3 different SpaceX vehicles in the air right now because they're lifting a booster at Port Canaveral, and then Ship 25 on the left-hand side of your screen just lifted onto suborbital pad A for its test campaign, and now Ship 24 has been lifted into the air by the chopstick of Mechazilla, lifting Ship 24 back on top of booster 7 to reform that full stack once again as SpaceX works to get into full stack testing. Let me know if you can hear me. I gotta pull up the chat panel here. Hopefully y'all can hear me, because otherwise this is really awkward at this point. Yes, everyone says 5x5. Thank you, chat. Helpful as always. As is usual, we'll take questions over today's coverage while also providing updates on what is going on. But yeah, we got Ship 24 being lifted by the chopsticks, and so we've spooled up a dedicated coverage for that. As SpaceX, again, the full stack, which they formed last week with Ship 24 and Booster 7, now destacked and then restacked. They did a reseed operation earlier last week as well, so they've been working some form of issues. I don't think we've heard anything specific other than Chris G getting a reply from Elon on Twitter saying that they're basically just being very careful with the full stack, given that the risk of a full propeller load, full stack of Starship and Super Heavy just brings a lot more risk to the outside of the to the ground support equipment and things like that. And so they want to be extra careful to avoid any rapid unscheduled disassemblies or RUDs, as we all know them. But yeah, Ship 24 back upward towards Booster 7, and hopefully this paves the way for some full stack testing in Starbase as early as either later this week or early next week. Getting towards the end of this week already, so maybe next week is the target, but we'll have to wait and see. Keep an eye on road closures and things like that. But yeah, we've got dual streams going. If you have 2 monitors, also highly recommend bringing up the Starlink launch stream. That launches just under 18 minutes from now, and Falcon 9 is already into propellant loading there for that launch from Slick 40 at Cape Canaveral, so I'll be keeping an eye on that as well. But Starbase getting a lot of action as well. All right, let me see what questions we've got in chat. I guess we can start taking those while Ship 24 makes its way to the top of the booster. Everyday Space Nerd asking, did they remove the crane attach points on the top of Ship 24? If we take a look, I believe they are still there. You can actually see it in this view. If you look towards the nose of Ship 24, you can still see some spots where there are no heat shield tiles. And that's where the crane attach points for when they were lifting the ship with the normal crane, the crane that they lift.
Hello?
Oh, yep. Hi, Nick. How's it going? Oh, well, maybe Nick can't hear us. We heard Nick for a second. We'll get Nick on comms here in a second. But yeah, the crane attach points that they use, such as Ship 25 over on the suborbital stand, are still on Ship 24. So they did not destack to remove those, which is interesting. So that was not basically, we can rule that out as the reason.
Audio test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Hey Nick, I think we've got you now. Can you hear us?
Hold on.
Maybe. We're getting Nick on comms. As you said, dueling up dual streams here, and we need to get the team split up into multiple streams so we can cover everything. But let me bring other questions. So to answer your question, Space Nerd, no, they did not remove those crane attach points. Let me see what other questions we have. Jack Bartlett saying, is it possible that the ship was destacked due to the high winds the past few days at Starbase? That is possible. I don't think we heard one way or the other, but I definitely wouldn't rule that out. It is definitely possible that that was a thing. I would imagine that ground winds and maybe this is like a first full stack thing, or it could be being more conservative because it's the first stack and things like that. But it is certainly possible that wind constraints are being in play for the first full stack of start, or not the first full stack, but a very early full stack of ship and booster. But I don't think we've heard that one way or the other. Eventually, I mean, operationally, you have to imagine that that's going to not be. You can't have that in the cards. You can't have a vehicle just need to be destacked simply because it's a little windy. So I mean, we're not talking hurricanes. We're talking, winds that are not that uncommon there at Starbase. So it's possible. For this full stack, it would, make sense that they want to be extra careful. So. All right, as I try to pull some more questions, I think we've got Alex on commentary also hopping on from the Starlink stream. Alex, they're keeping us busy this morning. How are you?
Yeah, they're keeping us very, very busy today. I was actually talking to someone just a couple of minutes ago, like, I'm not gonna be able to do the Starship stream because I'm commentating the Starlink stream. But now it's like, well, no, I can actually come here to the Starship stream. Ship 24 lifting, right? It's like, there you go. They destacked and now it's restacking. That's how Starbase works these days, right? It's like they do something, then they do the opposite, and we're like a tennis match here. We're looking at suborbital pads, orbital pad, production side. It's crazy.
They're actually showing the Starship lift on the Starlink stream too. I think just pointing out that not only does NSF have cameras everywhere, but we also have the ability to have 2 simultaneous dedicated streams. So big shout out to the production crew. Michael Bailey's operating your Starbase stream right now, and Das is operating the Starlink launch from Florida. And we've got Chris Gebhardt and Julia Bergeron over on the East Coast for Starlink, and we got myself and Alex on comms. I actually believe we can add another voice to the Starbase commentary team. Nick, I think we've got you on comms now. How you doing? Maybe. He told me he was ready to be introed. It's possible he lied. Oh, he's muted.
Hey guys.
All right, well, up there he is. Nick, how you doing?
I'm doing really well.
There we go.
Sorry, I was speaking over on a hot mic there, trying to all set up. A little bit of a mad scramble. How are you
No
guys?
worries, Nick. Nick, it's a busy day down in Starbase and a couple ships being lifted and things like that, yeah?
Yeah, I think this might go down in history as the first day that there were 2 starships in the air at the exact same time. Am I wrong about that?
Can't remember another time. Alex, can you? I don't think so.
I'm literally scratching my head right now. I don't remember. I truly don't remember. I don't think that has
they
happened
did.
before. Yeah, unless it was like some ship at the production side and one at the launch side. I don't remember that
Maybe.
happening.
But even
But
that, yeah, off the top of my head, I don't think so. All right, let's see. All right, we got a whole bunch of questions coming in. I got to pick out some of these, and I'll ask those.
oh them.
All right,
Keep
let's
them
see. Here, I'll ask this one. Does Ship 25 have its Raptor 2s? Obviously, we know Ship 24 has its
Ooh.
Raptor complement, but Ship 25 just lifted onto the grass.
I just looked at it this morning. There are no Raptors underneath Ship 25 right now because they are getting ready to do cryo testing, which involves the thrust simulators on Subpad A. So they are not going to be sticking any Raptors under there because they need to hook up the thrust simulators and simulate some thrust.
All right. Thank you for that, Nick. And Brennan, thanks for the question. What else we got here? All right, we got another Ship 25 question with the dual ship flow now. Simon asking, do we think that when they launch the full stack of 7 and 24, will Ship 25 have to be moved back to the production site?
Ooh, I would imagine so. Just like we saw with Ship 24 move to and from the production site a few times, I would not be shocked if we saw Ship 25 roll to and from the production site a few times. Now, theoretically, if at all possible, they could probably integrate some Raptors right there at the pad. We've seen them do that before for 1 or 2 Raptors, but all 6 might be a little bit big of an ask.
I mean, I think I agree with you, Nick, but I will add that on previous ship hops, like suborbital flight tests, there were definitely other ships just chilling at the launch site.
This is true.
So I will add that caveat to your answer, but I do agree that it would be likely that they roll it back anyway, especially because I mean we know they have forward work left on that ship. Same thing with Ship 24, though. I mean, people pointing out that those crane attach points are still on the nose cone. Think we'd expect those to get removed before any flight. So this is probably not the last stacking operation.
Oh.
Yeah, we kind of had an idea on that when we saw the first stacking, and then we saw the realignment, and then we saw this stacking. So it was like, yeah, this is not a D-stack to prepare for launch, not at all.
Right, yeah. All right, let me see. I'm going to keep picking out some questions. We also got some Super Chat support coming in. So really quick, Brett became a Capcom member. So Brett, thank you so much for that support. Brian became a PadRat member. Thank you so much. And then James Jury says, why don't they use a screw drive actuator for the chopsticks similar to 3D printers? I think it's probably a weight consideration. I know exactly what you're talking about, but I would imagine that the force requirements of lifting an entire Starship up maybe are more. It's better to distribute that load over. Like they have a couple winches, right, Nick?
Yeah, like pulleys that help. I don't know. I don't physics good. I should probably talk to Brilliant about that. But you can do some like force multiplication or whatever with the pulleys. Force multiplication. I don't know what it's called. But anyway,
I would. Yeah, the pulley system is better at distributing that force across your materials than a single screw drive would be, or something.
Exactly.
James also pointing out that it's he hates how the OLM and the OLI, so the launch mount and the tower aren't perfectly aligned. You can see from these views they're like slightly offset. Sorry, not oddly satisfying down in Starbase, unfortunately. But anyway, thank you for the support there, James. All right, here's a question that we get a couple times here as Ship 24 is approaching the top of Booster 7 here, asking, was that the maximum speed that the chopsticks can move, or will they be able to move faster? People ask that a lot, especially with regards to don't they need to move faster for catch attempts and things like that. What do you think, Alex? Would you expect the chopsticks to need to move faster, or is that speed suitable enough to let a booster land on them?
Well, as you said, like you perfectly said that at the end. It's more that the booster lands on the chopsticks rather than the chopsticks moving to catch the booster. We can start seeing the chopsticks swinging over to the booster, and so it's more like that. They don't really need to move a lot faster. They do need to open and close rather quickly in a matter of seconds, and I believe they have upgraded that already to be able to. We've seen like upgraded hydraulics and things like that. So you should be able to. Obviously, for these movements, they do very slow movements because they need to be careful. But when it's catching, landing on the arms, you don't have any other choice. So you gotta move fast, or otherwise you cannot really do much.
Right. A lot of people, and I'm going to steal an analogy from Michael Baylor because he said that it's not quite accurate to think that the chopsticks are catching the booster. It's more accurate to say that the booster is simply landing on the chopsticks, and that's I think a better way to think about it, right? That's the analogy that has made the most sense to me. So I'm going to steal it from Michael.
Michael Smart.
Michael Smart, listen to Michael. Yes, that's a common theme around here. CAMP Rebel says, too many Katos happening at once. SpaceX is in full force. Of course, that means crane-assisted takeoff. And between, well, I guess chopsticks-assisted takeoff would also fit that acronym.
That would.
So we got Ship 24 and 25. And Booster 1069 in Port Canaveral was also lifted this morning off of the drone ship. So, yep, keeping busy here. It will be interesting. Well, we got 6.5 minutes till Starlink. What do you think? What's going to happen first? Ship 24 stacks on the booster, or Falcon 9 lifts off from Florida?
Ooh.
You got 6 minutes. So is the stacking gonna be done in 6 minutes? Something tells me no.
I don't know.
Maybe SpaceX will see that as a challenge or something.
Yeah.
But anyway,
definitely listening to this, and they're like, "Oh, turn the chopsticks on full speed!" Oh, all the energy.
Oh man! All right, let me see what other questions we got here. Just people in chat. I don't know what's happening anymore. I'm trying to watch the Falcon 9 launch and the lift at the same time. We're right there with you. Just got to get more monitors. Highly recommend. Here's a question. Do we know how the chopsticks are controlled? Is there a guy with a joystick somewhere?
I don't know if it's a joystick, but I do know that it's manually controlled. Like not manually controlled with a rope and a pulley, but manually controlled with some kind of remote, joystick or computer program or something. But someone just started up a leaf blower. I will be right back.
All right, we'll
Yell
get
at
back
them.
to you then. Another day in Starbase. But yeah, so remote controlled in some respect is the understanding there, Nick. Thanks. Got a super chat here from KitKat. Just returned home from uni. Love to see a restack and Falcon launch. Appreciate the support there, KitKat. What other questions we got here? Oh yeah, a good one. And again, they are rotating the ship over to the booster slowly but surely, keeping an eye on that. But this question says, with the third tower, could be a new tower, or would it be for a replacement if something goes wrong on the first catch attempt? So that's referring to the new Starship tower segments that are under construction at the Roberts Road facility at the Kennedy Space Center. Obviously, we have one tower that's on your screen twice right now. That's the tower in Starbase, but there's also a second tower at the Kennedy Space Center at 39A. That is for Starship operations there, and then there are components for a third tower already under construction in Florida. Not super clear where they might be going. So the question asking, is it a new tower for a new launch site? Because we do know that SpaceX is working on multiple launch sites on the East Coast, or launch pads, I should say, all within the same range. But also, could it be a replacement if something goes wrong on the first catch? I think that if they would have to rebuild a tower in some respect, I would imagine they would prioritize those components for that. But I also think it's pretty unlikely that a RUD would completely destroy a launch tower. I mean, I think it's going to be built to withstand any sort of failure. It might need repairs, but that's different from needing to rebuild it entirely. So I would say, and Alex, I'm going to loop you in on this, I would say that they're probably building those components for a third launch site, even if we don't know what exact pad it might be for.
Yeah, I've said jokingly in some places that the tower is obviously for a replacement when they blow up when catching or something. But that's a joke. I'm not really thinking that seriously. My serious thought on that is probably for Launch Complex 49. They do not have any of the paperwork yet ready. That's a note that I should point that out here. But you could think that as soon as they have the paperwork ready, they're gonna go all in with that launchpad. We've seen them do that with 39A, where they went in and they started, building the foundations, tank farm, hardware, and everything. So they went all in with that, and I could expect something similar. They have already built one tower, and why not keep around the same people, the same folks, for precisely that, building more towers? Because
Exactly.
if you think about it, if they had to wait until they can actually have foundations built and everything, you have a lot of people hanging around not doing anything that know how to build a tower, right? And that's at least my thinking here. That now the location, though, it could be Launch Complex 49, but we already know that they're kind of considering other launch sites, especially on the Cape side of the complex. In this case, the word is they're kind of looking at Slick 47 on the Cape Canaveral side. But the problem with that is we don't know anything at all about any paperwork. At least with Launch Complex 49, we know that there's an environmental assessment being underway, basically. So, you will expect at least the Space Force to say, hey, we're doing this study or something with SpaceX to be able to put Starship pad here or something, because it's Space Force launch site. So, yeah.
Thank you, Alex. And really quick, I'm going to give everyone a 1-minute warning. If you would like to see the Falcon 9 launch with the Starlink mission from Cape Canaveral, just over a minute left until that launch. And of course, NASASpaceflight is live for that. We got 2 dedicated streams going right now. This one is, of course, Starbase Ship 24 stacking operations, but also Falcon 9 with the Starlink 4-36 mission from Cape Canaveral is just under a minute away from launch. So if you have another monitor or another screen, feel free to pull that up. And there's your 1-minute warning for that launch. But anyway, I will continue the updates here on Starbase. As you can see, Ship 24 now rotated all the way over to Booster 7, or at least it looks to be about lined up. So we'll wait to see the chopsticks start to set it down on top of the booster and finish our stacking ops today.
Absolutely. It is so cool how fast they're moving these days. Like
It does seem faster and smoother like every time they do that stacking op, right?
exactly. And as I would expect from innovative people at SpaceX, they'd probably learn a fewer things every time they do it. And it's awesome to see that like every time they do it, seems to be a little bit more mechanical and quick and easy and fast and smooth. So here's to SpaceX.
All right.
I think I need more screens.
Yeah, honestly, I have 3 big monitors and I'm struggling, but we do have liftoff from Florida of the Starlink mission for those keeping track of that. And let's see, is Ship 24 going down yet? Well, Ship 24 isn't down yet. All right, so we got 2 different vehicles airborne for SpaceX again, because I think Ship 25 is down on the cryo stand, right, Nick?
I believe Mr. Michael can pull up a beautiful view from the van of the current status of Ship 25. I don't know exactly where it is at the moment.
I am
but-
curious
Oh,
if there are 3
Ship
airborne
QD
SpaceX
is not
vehicles.
moving.
Oh yeah, the ship QD arm, so you can see that on both of your views. On the left-hand side view near the bottom, the ship QD arm is rotating over to the booster ship interface, if you would. So there we go. That's some movement as they prepare to set the ship down. I think we've seen that on the previous stacks too, right? They've moved that arm in before they set it down.
I believe
Yep.
so.
It used to be that it moved to be able to hold the booster with the claws and everything, but now
But they don't
they
have the
have removed
claws
those.
anymore.
Yep. So nowadays it's probably more like they just keeping that thing. I don't know, to be honest.
Yeah, I wonder. I mean, maybe there's some sort of camera or alignment thing that once before they set the ship down, they want the arm in place. That would be my guess.
Yeah.
And I apologize, you might not hear it from my microphone, but my house is shaking. Wonder why
I
that
don't
might be.
know. I don't know. Could be. No idea.
Could that be a rocket launch?
Just
What
one
are
of those
those?
Space
Aerospace.
Coast
Are
They
you
don't.
are
problems.
They
you
don't
in
do
the
those.
West Coast?
They don't do those. They don't do those down here at Starbase. So I don't know what that's about. How strange.
Oh,
It's very
when
weird.
that
I'm never in my
happens,
house during the launch. Normally, I'm at least outside.
once that
Anyway.
happens, Boca Chica will rumble a lot.
Just
That's
a
true.
little.
Plenty of houses will be shaking in Boca Chica when Starship launches. Okay, let me see what other questions we've got here. Swin asking, could the third tower be for the crew launch capability from Slick 40? We actually have a firm answer for this. No, and there are 2 reasons. First of all, NASA actually confirmed, I think it was during the Crew 5 press activities, someone asked, like, because they were previously talking about they're going to add, or at least considering adding crew launch capability to Pad 40, so that they have 2 Crew Dragon launch sites at Florida in case one happens to encounter an issue, such as a Starship exploding or something. But they also confirmed that fabrication of components for that, like a crew tower for 40, has not started yet. So we know that they haven't started building infrastructure for that yet. And also, if you look at the tower components, they quite clearly have the Starship like lifting Mechazilla skids and things like that on the tower segments. So they're clearly Starship hardware. So for those 2 reasons, we know that the tower segments are not for Pad 40. Unless they're turning Pad 40 into a Starship launch complex, which they are not. So
I don't think there's a space for that.
no, the other sites that they are looking at in Florida. There's Launch Complex 49, which is north of 39A and B. There's a plan for 2 launch sites up there, and NASA is in the environmental assessment process for that specific launch site. And then also there's been consideration of adding a launch site down on the Space Force side that is referred to as Space Launch Complex 47, which is a small area that hasn't really been used before, but there's talk of a Starbase or a Starship site there as well. So those are options. There's also, of course, sea launch platforms. Maybe they're building components for that. So there's a couple different places they could be looking. But
And one thing to point out though on the Slick 40 side, we knew from a few weeks ago Bill Gerstenmaier from SpaceX, he said that they had some contracts already for the fabrication of the parts, and I think people jumped the gun there too quickly, kind of saying, "Oh yeah, those tower segments being built at KSC are for that tower." But then, as you pointed out, someone asked on a more recent press conference whether that actually was for that, and Ship 24 is now going down, by the way. And
Yeah.
NASA confirmed that fabrication has not started. So basically, what they're doing is, yeah, they're putting ahead all the contracts, and probably long lead items are being ordered and things like that. But the design is still not finished on that tower, and all the, because it's not just the tower. They need a pad escape system, for example, as well, which will be super cool to see at Sleep 40, by the way. So yeah, like the basket things that they roll down to be able to escape in case of any fire or something. But yeah, there's a whole number of things that they have to do there, and they said it might take 1 to 2 years to actually enable crew capability. Cargo will come sooner. That's actually not really a big deal. They were able to do cargo there with Dragon One. The only difference was that they loaded the late cargo horizontally, but they were able to do that. And eventually they'll do it vertically, but you could do cargo just horizontally.
All right, thank you there, Alex. And I do want to point out that they started to set Ship 24 down onto the booster, but they've lifted it vertical again just a little bit. I would imagine just working on aligning it.
Yeah.
But
Don't
Nick,
wanna
we're
see
also
the
getting a
same thing.
view of some Raptor engine
Yes.
bells right now.
I was gonna mention that. We can just barely see through the itsy bitsy little slit there as they approach the final status of their stacking. You could just barely see the RVAC engines there, and you did see as it was rising up that one of those RVAC engine bells was actually still white on the inside, which indicates that it has not been static fired. At least that engine bell has not been static fired.
But at least the
We've
bell,
seen
yeah.
them. Yeah, the bell. I believe the turbo pumps and stuff probably have been static fired at McGregor a number of
SpaceX
times. They
drone,
do
by the
test
way.
those out. Ooh, SpaceX
But
drone.
we haven't
Nice.
but we haven't seen any swap outs since the last static fire, right? Or have we? Any engine swaps? We saw it
Yes, I
before
believe we
the
did. It
static
was
fire. Bef-
RVAC
But we saw it
115, right?
before.
Was that before?
Yeah, that was
Hmm.
before the static fire. Yeah.
Well, then I don't know. It
So
definitely didn't look static fired to me, though.
Right, yeah, I can see what you're looking at, Nick, so that's
it
interesting.
could be that it is lightly used. Is probably the term.
Just
It's
sell it
not
on
very.
eBay.
Think Ship
Lightly
20
used,
has
only fired
Ship
once for a couple
Ship
seconds.
Ship 20 in the Rocket Garden has a few of those lightly used Raptor engines, low mileage, just to and from the pad a couple times.
Oh man. Alright, let me see what
You know,
else we've go ahead.
it will be very, very crazy if they stack this, like they set it down at the moment Falcon 9 lands.
You know
Because right
what?
now,
I'm kind of
That would
keeping
be
an
cool.
eye on that. Falcon 9 headed towards the drone ship right now for a Starlink mission from Florida. And Ship 24 landing on Booster 7, crane assisted landing. Does that count?
I think it
Or
does.
I guess it's chopsticks assisted landing. Got to be more specific.
Chopstick assisted landing, yeah. I think so. So this is what, the second or I guess third time that Ship 24's landed.
Yeah,
here.
that's true.
I gotta say, we're here on Starship, and I'm looking at the Falcon 9 stream on the other side, obviously, because I'm following both, and I'm seeing the booster going down, and I just cannot imagine how crazy that'll be with super
When it's a
heavy.
super heavy, yeah.
Oh god, that's gonna be so crazy.
I don't think any of us are emotionally prepared for that, to be honest.
Mm-mm.
And seeing one of those come to Boca Chica, that thing, I mean, you could probably tell this better than me, but that looks like it's coming right at you from above. So that's gonna be crazy at Boca Chica.
Speaking of which, not to be that guy, but Ship 24 is being lowered onto the booster again, and I'm not saying it's going to time it with the Falcon touchdown perfectly, but Falcon's about to land too.
Yeah,
Michael,
landed.
we need a side by side.
I think Falcon beat the ship just by a little bit there. But
Okay.
to be fair,
Not
Falcon
from
has a little bit more
fucking
experience.
Not for long. We're
But
coming
not
And
for
for
you.
time, by the
long.
way. So
Yeah, that Falcon booster's
lot
done that
more.
10 times, so that's fair. I like to think there's a Daily Harper comic in here somewhere where like the ship is holding a phone, like watching. All right, now how do I do this? Oh, okay, I land like that, and then it lands on the booster.
and
Well,
and ship
we'll
20
need to
ship
tell.
25's hiding behind booster 8 all shy.
Anyway, all right, let me see what other questions we've got here. Do we have an estimated ETA? Is that like ATM machine? An estimated TA on the FAA launch license?
Soon. TM. 2
Soon
weeks.
TM. Yes, of course.
I don't think I've seen anything specifically on an ETA for that, but I can tell you that we have seen other launch providers get their launch licenses within hours of their
Right.
launch attempt. So I wouldn't necessarily say that we would have a ton of warning. I feel like we'd get a lot of other indications, likely from Mr. Musk's Twitter,
Yeah.
about the potential orbital flight test dates before we'd see a launch license. But who knows?
Exactly, yeah. My answer for this question has basically been don't like looking for the launch license is not the right way to figure out when this launch might happen because, like you said, literally could be a couple hours beforehand. It's much better to be looking at the testing milestones, which of course we cover here, progress towards stacking and final static fires and a wet dress rehearsal at some point, stuff like that, rather than waiting when the launch license might come out because that's not going to be your best indicator. Still plenty of forward work to do. Of course, it looks like they have completed the stack again, and so this sets the stage for wet dress rehearsal testing and things like that. We would hope that, I mean, it could happen as early as tomorrow. Let me pull up the road closure schedule because off the top of my head I don't remember. Go to my
Yeah,
favorite
there's
There's
no
a
road closure.
lot of them.
There's no road closure scheduled for today, but I believe there's one scheduled for tomorrow, right?
Yeah, there's one
yeah.
for tomorrow, Friday, 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. And then next week we have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, all
And Friday.
days. Well, I was gonna say those days are 8 a.m. to 8
Oh yeah,
p.m.
okay,
and then
sorry.
on Friday it's 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. So there you go.
I just
See,
got to
you
give a
went
quick
ahead
shout out.
from me.
Sorry, I just got to give a quick shout out to this awesome view provided by our beach site there with a full stack, a booster, Hoppy, and Ship 25 all in one. I love it.
See, one of the things that I'm doing right now is kind of going back and forth to check on that full stack, like the last minute, and
You're trying to see how much
afterwards.
Falcon beat it by.
No, I was actually looking at how the stacking, the seating, because on the last full stack that we saw this kind of shift, kind of weird move, and then they had to realign. So I'm looking back just to make sure that maybe later today or tomorrow we don't see them lifting it again, just in case. But yeah, it's crazy. We're seeing now this full stack, and the next, well, at least one of the pairs being ready for testing. Ship 25, Booster 8 is poor guy is just there alone. So
Awaiting
sad.
some testing.
Or not, we'll see.
Don't say such things, Alex. No.
I do hope they test it, but more days go
it's
by
almost
and they
it's
don't test
almost
it.
like they. Sorry, I keep talking over you. It's almost like they need more suborbital pads or more testing facilities, because they got the suborbital pad A set up for Starship thrust simulation, and subpad B set up for Starship static fire, but they don't have anything set up for the booster stuff.
Yeah.
All right, we got another message here. It's a super chat, and I'm going to turn this into a question. The person that sent this message seems to know the answer, but I don't, so I'm going to ask. James Jury says, "Glad to finally know what the different colored lights on the tower mean." I don't know what the colors mean. So do you guys?
I think I saw that tweet by my good buddy Chief the other day. Alex, do you have that while I'm trying to pull it up?
Well, I do remember the lights, what each mean, but I don't think I have the link actually. The lights basically what they have different lights on the tower and they mean different statuses or status. What's the plural of that? I'm not really good at that. But stati.
Statidi? I have no
Okay,
idea.
so the green, red, and yellow lights, they are more like status of safety operations. So green is all clear, yellow is like, hey, caution, things might happen, you gotta evacuate or something like that. I'm kind of translating. It's actually more technical, but I'm translating it.
Yeah,
And then
I
red
did.
is no entry at all. You cannot go there.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
And then they have a white light, which is for high winds over 28
Yep.
miles an hour.
Weather-related lights, warning lights, lightning phase 2 for yellow. No, not yellow, blue. Excuse me, and then white. We had seen actually blue and white at some point, but now they have the actual what was it? The labels are there, and so before we saw the labels, I was actually hoping blue was for lightning because it makes sense. It's like blue, lightning, lightning is blue, so you put both and both together. And I'm kind of glad that at least something at a Starbase makes sense for once. That blue is for lightning. Yeah. Yeah, after SN15 going all the way to Ship 20 and, going from SN to Ship and then Ship, Starship, whatever, it kind of makes sense now that it's really good to have something that makes sense now.
All right. Bringing in another question here. Cosmic Mustache says, do we know if SpaceX has considered a double stack tower, meaning one tower with 2 launch mounts, chopsticks, etc. on opposite sides? I believe we've seen the plans for the dual launch mounts at Starbase, and it is not a single tower in between 2 launch mounts, right?
I don't actually remember.
I think we've seen the plans, and it distinctly has, 2 towers, 2 launch mounts.
Yeah, there are plans for expansion. The only problem is I don't believe they have been approved by the Army Corps of Engineers. We saw that a few months ago. Well, a few months ago. It was actually a long time ago. Now that I remember. But yeah, I don't think they can build it right away. They can expand. I think that land is their land, like SpaceX side land. So they can obviously expand, but I'm not sure they can actually build, like a second tower in OLM. They do have plans for it though. So once the paperwork is all complete for that, we could see that. Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if SpaceX had plans for literally everything, including Martian bases and all that fun stuff. But whether or not they get to them, and whether or not those
Yeah.
plans change 800 times by the time they get to it, that's always in the air.
All right, let me see what else we got here. Here's a good question. Some of you use the term Falcon Heavy excitement during the SN8 hop test. Do we think that Super Heavy will beat that level of excitement? I would imagine it has to, right?
It better be. I mean,
Like it's the
I'm
next
already quite
big
excited about it.
thing.
There's a difference to me, at least here. Falcon Heavy to me was exciting visually for not just the launch but also pre-launch, because we barely had seen it. Whereas here at Starbase, we've seen Starship a lot of times. We see it 24/7, right? At Starbase Live.
Shoot, Starbase Live. Anyway.
Yeah.
Always
So,
playing.
yep. So it's this thing where I'm so used to seeing Starship that it'll be cool seeing it fly. That's gonna be like the new thing to my eyes in that sense. In terms of the hype, there's also the visual hype, and that part of seeing the full stack now, it's kind of kicking into my brain, where it's getting more and more used to seeing the full stack. So it's not like, oh, super, super awesome thing. It's like, I'm already seeing it. so yeah, but that's kind of the thing here. It's got to be routine where we see Starlink launch every week now. Falcon 9 launches every week, and people are like, oh, that's boring. To me, it's not boring. It's like, it's another launch. We're seeing more launches. It's not getting boring to me. It's like, yes, more launches, more
It's getting
activity.
even more exciting.
It's getting more exciting. Yeah, it's like, it's routine, but it's exciting because things are going according to plan. Like this was all in the plans 10 years ago for SpaceX to launch many times each year and week and things like that. So this is all really good. I'm not super hyped, obviously, because it's nothing new, but it's something that I really enjoy.
Couldn't agree more there, Alex.
All right. Well, it looks like the ship has finished stacking on top of the booster, so that's Ship 24 back on top of Booster 7 at the orbital launch site in Starbase. I'm going to thank a couple other super chats that have come in here. Liz, thank you so much. No message here, just a $20 super chat, so appreciate it. Always appreciate the support everyone sends. Also, another one from Billy Day that has no question, just thanks for what you do. So appreciate those kind words as well. And Robert became a PadRat member, so I appreciate that as well. Thank you so much. Any other questions that we can wrap up with here? Let's see. Oh, Admiral asking, has Ship 25 gotten its markings? I didn't see a slick paint job on Ship 25 yet, right?
I've been waiting for that for weeks now. Before Ship 24 rolled out for the first time, they stuck that slick looking SpaceX logo and the S24 marker on it. And I was waiting for them to do that on Ship 25, but they didn't. So I don't know if that means they're changing up the paint scheme, or maybe they're using Elon's favorite kind of paint, which is no paint at all. So we'll see.
It's a pretty, like, it's not even that much. Like, it's a SpaceX logo, it's the S24, and that's kind of it. Like, it's not that
Thomas.
much.
Best paint is no paint.
Oh, gee. All right. Thank you, Nick.
Okay. I'm glad the joke finally got through. That is Elon's favorite kind of paint. No paint. Cybertruck.
Yeah. Also getting a couple more questions in chat about the hooks on top of Ship 24. Yeah, so it is worth noting that this is probably not the last full stack for the Ship 24 because the attach points on the nose cone are still there. Those were used when they were lifting the ship onto the suborbital stands with the crane for those tests. And they haven't removed those points, and it would be almost certainly required to remove those points and replace them with, heat shield tiles if you want to make Ship 24 attempt a reentry after its flight. So we'd expect probably another destack at some point, but that could be after full stack wet dress testing or static fire testing. Who knows what they can do, but they could probably do some of that before they do a final destack and prep and things like that. All right, so before we wrap up here, though, I do want to thank everyone for tuning in, and I want to thank everyone who sent support their way, and which have a new way that you can send support because there's a new piece of merch on the NASASpaceflight.com shop. The NSF calendar for 2023 is now available, and actually, I should say calendars, plural, because there's two calendars this year. Last year, we just had the Starbase calendar, all of your favorite Starbase and Starship photos, but now we also have a second calendar that's broader spaceflight. I believe it has a Starship photo in there somewhere too, but it's got SLS, it's got Falcon 9s, it's got ULA launches. I think there's an Astra month or something like that. There's a whole bunch of different rockets on the other calendar. So two calendars now available for the shop.nasaspaceflight.com. We've actually got a deal running too because those two different calendars, I believe they're $40 each, but if you buy both, it's $60. So if you need a couple calendars, maybe one for work, one for home, something like that, you can go ahead and grab both of them. But all, of course, like all of the NSF merch, all of that support goes toward expanding our news coverage and improving the ways we can bring you live camera views of all the 8 million things that SpaceX decides to do on a Thursday morning. So thank you, everyone who sent support that way. It might be 9 million at this point.
I think it was closer to 9, yeah.
But I think that is going to wrap up our coverage from here at Starbase. We had a busy morning, a Starlink launch from Florida, a full stack in Starbase, and of course, you can keep tabs on both Florida and Starbase with our 24/7 streams. Space Coast Live will keep you updated as to SpaceX preparing for full stack testing. No road closure scheduled for today, so I would imagine our earliest possible window for full stack testing would be tomorrow. And of course, you can subscribe to NASASpaceflight.com. Click the little bell icon, whatever the kids are doing these days, to be informed when we go live for dedicated live testing. But until then, I think we're going to go hang out at Space Coast or Starbase Live or Space Coast Live, or both if you have two monitors. Highly recommend. But really quick, around the horn. Alex, thanks for hopping on comms for both streams today.
Yeah, I actually want to point out that there was a small gap to the right here before when I was checking doing AV. I believe Nick is having some
Some leaf
hardware,
blowers, maybe.
yeah, behind him. Uh, and now it looks like it's properly settled on booster 7. So yeah, like now it's actually on the spot. We'll see what happens in the next few days. But yeah, super exciting days.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. And then also Nick out there in the field, of course, at Starbase. Thank you so much for hopping on comms as well this morning.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. And special thanks to Mr. Jack for hustling with me this morning, getting everything deployed and out there to support all of the action this morning. Thanks, guys.
Sounds great. Big shout out to the production team here at NSF that just ran 2 simultaneous dedicated streams from Florida and Texas. Michael Baylor and Das working magic as always. My name is Thomas Burkhart, also offering some comms. Everyone check out Starbase Live for continued live views from here at Starbase. But that's going to wrap up our coverage. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Stay tuned for future coverage, and we'll see you then next time.